Hello friends, welcome to Squaird Plans, where creative planning and organization comes to life. I'm Stephanie, and today we're going to be designing a themed planner spread in a horizontal layout. I'll be using some mixed media techniques to design the first week of May in my classic Happy Planner, so come plan with me. And I've got these washi tapes here all ready to go, as well as these watercolor pencils that I may use, as well as these Tombow dual brush pens I may use as well, and a water brush pen for adding some watercolor techniques. I also grabbed some cardstock that I had in my stash, and a little bit of glue runner, as well as these Happy Planner sticker books and this Planning Thing sticker book, which I'll pull from. So this is the first week of the May Plannable Challenge, and this week's theme is fresh and clean. So if you'd like to participate, go ahead and post your spreads up on Instagram using the hashtag PlannableMay2023. We'd love to see what you come up with. So like I said, I grabbed some cardstock that I had in my stash from Planning Thing, and I decided to use the top half of this design to create a bucket design out of it. So I just went ahead and drew it out. I kind of did some sketches, figured out the size and the shape that I wanted, and then I cut it out by hand. Nothing too complicated. And I also added a little bit extra watercolor on top of it just to give it a little bit more of a dirty look and some shadowing. And that worked out pretty well. I also learned as I did that, since I had penciled it in, is that the pencil markings do not mix well with the water. So earlier I had the bubbles already set up, penciled in, and I ended up going back through as I was talking earlier and erasing most of the marks so I would just see a faint line. So it'd be a little bit easier to blend in a little later, which you'll see. But for now, what I'm doing is I'm laying in some washi tape. I decided to pull these blue to aqua tones to kind of go with the theme, which I think I'm going to stick with just the blues and the aquas so that I can limit the color palette a little bit and still give you that fresh feel. And what I'm doing is I'm just layering them on top of each other so there's a subtle gradient going down the sides of the page. Starting with the brighter green aqua tone at the top and then going down to the more muted, almost lavender tone at the bottom, and then layering them on top of each other again to kind of create that gradient effect as we go down. I also am going to use some of these circle stickers from the Planning Things Pastels Boxes sticker book. I really think this is going to work well for bubbles, and also may give me a little space for some notes throughout the week. So they'll serve both purposes. I am going to try to stick with the brighter blues at the top and the more muted, almost purple tone at the bottom. Again, kind of going with that gradient effect. Those are the only two colors that really match up well with the color scheme I've got going here, but I think it's enough to tie it in, and I think it's a pretty believable color scheme as far as for bubbles or soap. So we'll just add that in. Luckily, there's a bunch of different sizes of those circle stickers, so I was able to really create the feel of bubbles with the variety of sizes available. Originally, I had planned to do these icons here as the main decor, but they're really hard to build a whole spread around since they are so small. So what I decided to do is just bring them in and again kind of create that cleaning idea, but just going down the sides of the page. I think this extra step really wasn't that necessary in the end, but I do like how I brought in a little bit more of the spring cleaning feel along with the gradient on the sides to add a bit of interest and texture to the borders. So I began just pulling out the colors that happened to match up with the colors I have on the page and any of the cleaning icons that were available. And first, again, I wasn't repeating anything on one side, but then I started to do a little bit more repetition if needed because I kind of ran out of icons to use. I was placing them where they best fit with the color scheme. So there's a few that are in like a darker green that kind of mesh a little bit better at the top. And then there's some really pale blue-purple ones that I put closer to the bottom. And then anything in between those two colors I kind of mixed in the middle and tried to match it up the best I could with the washi tape next to it. So I just take a moment to really go through all of the icons available in the book and rearrange some things just so that they all fit in that gradient color scheme I was working towards on the sides. Playing around with a few things and rearranging things as I go. And again, like I said, when I was all done, I didn't feel like I really needed that extra bit of the icons on the side, but it does add a little bit to the spread. So I'm glad I added it in. I think you can go either way with this, but I do feel like the main event of the spread or the main attraction is the pail and the bubbles, which you'll see. There's more to come with some more of that watercolor pencils in the center. So this is just kind of like an added little tidbit on the side, almost like added texture on the edges. I think I'm happy with what I've got there. And then I really do like to have at least one quote on each spread that I do, just something that is a word or a phrase to tie everything together. So I pulled out the spring sticker book, hoping to find something that said like spring cleaning, but I didn't have any of those stickers left over. I did come across these colored letters as I was going through the book, and I thought, well, I could just make my own quote using those. And since the theme this week is fresh and clean, I thought it'd be perfect just to spell that out in particular. So as you can see, originally I was thinking to go around the bucket maybe and see if I could bring it in that way, but I just didn't like the way it was looking. So I tried a few other places. I did like the vertical element of the letters, and I may bring that in at another point, but I think just for this spread, I'm going to do a more traditional look with the quote and then just put it in this corner of the this week area since I need less space on that day and I can fill it a little bit more with the decor. Now we're into the fun part, you guys. I decided to break out some watercolor pencils this week and actually draw in the bubbles. I did print the whole month of May on the Nina paper, which I've been saying Niha paper for a while, but the Nina paper that I bought earlier in the year. I'll link it down below. It's about 180 GSM, so it's a little bit thicker than our normal planner papers, but it makes it a lot easier for you to work with more mixed media styles of things and create things that might be a little bit more saturating into the paper. So, like I said, I'm coloring in just like the faint pencil lines that I had erased earlier. We're using these watercolor pencils in gray and in a bright teal tone, almost an aqua tone. I would say it was more like an aqua. And am just kind of lightly shading the gray and the blue together to create almost the look of the transparent bubble. And so it's just a simple coloring in, like just drawing circles and shading them in. And then I'm going back over them with the water brush to mix them, making more of a seamless bubble look, as you'll see. I really didn't do too much to this, you guys. I didn't think too hard. I didn't put certain colors on certain sides to make shadowing or anything like that. So pretty much anybody can do it. You just want to have a somewhat light touch with the pencils themselves, using the grays and the blues together, and then that little bit of water will really create the effect of the bubbles. Again, with that water brush, I really had very minimal water in there, just enough to wet the paper slightly. So it really doesn't seep too much into the paper and doesn't get too wet. Just a trick for you guys if you are going to try to attempt this. Do have a light touch with the water as well. And now I've cut the bucket in half so that I can lay it there on the middle, and just made it a little bit easier than trying to cut it with the pages attached, and glued it down with a Tombow glue runner that I've had in my stash for a while. I did that instead of a glue stick just because it's a little bit more of a stronger bond, and the cardstock is somewhat heavier than the paper, so I wanted to make sure that it was stuck down pretty well. So now that I've got that in, I also went ahead and whited out the border lines so that they don't conflict with the icons when I laid them down. And then I'm also just going back through now that the bubbles have dried a bit and erasing any leftover pencil lines that I could still see left on the page. It was easy to grab the washi tape straight off of the wax paper and move that right over to the page itself. I did rearrange a few of the icons here just so that it fit a little bit better in the space. And now we'll do the same thing on the right-hand side. I'm lining up the washi tape right up to that border line I covered over with the white pen, just so that there's a nice even space there on the edge. But there is some excess of the washi tape when I did that, so I actually think I'm going to try to save that and reuse that a little bit later in the video. I kind of like that there was enough there that could be reused somewhere else, so I'll save that on the wax paper and then just finish the trimming as needed. So now I'm going to go ahead and move over those circle stickers. Just trying to approximate where they were on the wax paper. I liked the spacing of it, so I'm just trying to match it up as best I can without being too complicated. I'm also thinking about where I might actually want to write on each day, so I am making some small adjustments as I go. And also looking at the bubbles that are now on the page, making sure that they don't cover up too much of those smaller bubbles in the background. I also moved that quote in a little bit so that it was a little bit tighter to the bucket itself. I thought that looked a little bit better and centered things more towards the main event, if you will, of the page. Now I'm going back through and punching out the cardstock so that I can get this guy in my planner using the We Are Memory Keepers Power Disc Punch. This would not have worked with a Happy Planner punch, FYI. So if that's something that you have only in your stash, recommend trying to pre-punch that cardstock before you layer it into your planner page. So before you glue it down, try to get a punch and then line up the punches that way, because it will definitely catch in a Happy Planner punch if it's stuck down. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and try to reuse those leftover pieces that I mentioned before. And I think I'm just going to layer them in a little bit here and there for some added color. Trying to sneak this one underneath the pail so that it looks like it's flowing in behind it. And this one as well. So I've divided up one of the strips into two, putting them in there at the top and the bottom. That looks good. Maybe drop in one or two more here in the middle areas, again for a little bit more color. And maybe I'll divide these ones up as well. Kind of going with the gradient color that's going down the page, so I'm placing the colors where I think they would be on the sides as far as the border, trying to match that up a bit more so that the color again looks more seamless. And this last piece I'll put at the top and then maybe rearrange it so that the top part is all the way across the spread. And once I'm done with that, you guys, we will be done, friends. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up down below. Also, too, go ahead and leave me a comment if you'd like to get in touch. And think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, if you'd like to see more of my videos. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Bye!